Okay, so in the last installment, we spoke about the cerebral hemispheres. Now we're going to talk about the diencephalon, as well as the brainstem and the cerebellum. So the diencephalon sits up on top of the brainstem. Here it's this red section there. It's enclosed by the cerebral hemispheres in the blue, and it is made up of 3 parts, and some of them you'll recognize from biology and whatnot. So the first part of the diencephalon is the thalamus, and you can see the different parts of the thalamus. It's right there in the brain. It acts as the gateway to the cerebral cortex. So it's a relay station. Sensory impulses come into the thalamus, and then the thalamus sort of sends them out into the appropriate area of the brain for interpretation. So it's interpreting the afferent, so toward the brain impulses, so that then they can go to the right part of the cerebral cortex, whether it's going to the left side, post-central gyrus, because it's coming from the right side, or what have you. Again, hopefully this isn't you. If it is, take a break, stretch, eat some food. Okay, next is the hypothalamus. Hypo means beneath or below or under. So the hypothalamus is located under the thalamus, and it is the homeostatic control center of the body. So it regulates things like emotions, which is part of what we call the limbic system, temperature, appetite, thirst, sleep, and the endocrine system. And the endocrine system, which we'll talk about a little bit later in second semester, controls hormonally a lot of these kinds of things as well. Hypothalamus. So additionally, there are what are called the mammillary bodies in the hypothalamus. They are nuclei, so cell nuclei related to emotional response to odors, olfactory reflexes, and memory. So we talked a little bit about scent and memory with the cerebral cortex. So the mammillary bodies are also playing a part in that. So if you smell something that's gross and you go, yeah, then that would be like an olfactory reflex, right? You pull your head away. Finally, we have the epithalamus. So these are all the 3 parts of the diencephalon: thalamus, hypothalamus, and epithalamus. And the epithalamus houses what's called the pineal body, which is an endocrine gland that synthesizes melatonin, which is involved in sleeping and waking, and the onset of puberty. It's kind of controlling timings of different things in the epithalamus. And again, we'll talk more about the pineal gland as we talk about the endocrine system a little bit later. Laugh. The end. Okay, so that was the diencephalon. Next, the brainstem. Okay, so the brainstem, just like the diencephalon, has 3 parts. The 3 parts are the midbrain here, the pons here, and the medulla oblongata. And then you can see it in this picture, just a nice view of the cerebellum as well. So, again, each of these 3 parts has a different function, so we'll talk about those next. And here, just again, is a view of kind of all the things we've just talked about. Here's the thalamus, ascending tracts, so nerve bundles going up to the cerebrum, optic nerve, midbrain, pons, and medulla. And then the hypothalamus would be like deep in there. Okay, the midbrain is composed of tracts of nerve fibers relaying sensory and motor impulses. So they're coming in through the midbrain up to the thalamus and then out into the appropriate part of the cerebral cortex. Next, we have the pons, and that is the second sort of the bulgy part of the brainstem. And this is going to control a lot of autonomic systems, breathing, sleep, hearing, equilibrium, things that are happening kind of automatically for the most part. You don't have to think about. Next, we have the most fun one to say, the medulla oblongata. And that is the part of the brainstem that then connects into the spinal cord. It is the autonomic reflex center, so make sure you listen to the lecture about the autonomic nervous system. And it contains control centers for heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing rate and rhythm. So these are obviously things that you don't have to think about consciously. They occur, they're controlled by the brainstem. You don't have to think about them at all. The medulla also governs other involuntary reflexes, so vomiting, hiccuping, swallowing, coughing, sneezing. You can kind of think of it as the seven dwarfs, right? Heart, blood pressure, breathing, and then all of these. So, yeah, medulla oblongata. Finally, we have the cerebellum. So the cerebellum deals with timing and pattern of muscle action, things that are happening subconsciously, like coordination. So when you're walking, for instance, you're not thinking, once you're an adult, you're not thinking consciously about what muscles need to do what in order for you to walk. Your cerebellum is kind of governing how that happens. And that's it. Hello. So make sure you watch all the 4 parts of these lectures. There are questions on the final about the different parts, structures of the brain, and the central and peripheral nervous systems. Remember that it's the final, so it's at a little bit more of a broad level than a super specific level. But definitely go through, make sure you learn about the blood-brain barrier and the autonomic nervous system in particular. Happy studying.